Okay, well, let me just ask y'all some questions because you all have a quiz on Chapter 5 today. What are the three types of muscle tissue? Cardiac, skeletal, and what? Smooth. Okay, which ones are striated? Huh? Skeletal and cardiac, right? Okay, they have those little stripes. Which one is smooth? Smooth. Which ones are involuntary? We have no conscious control. Cardiac and what? Smooth. So that makes skeletal what? Voluntary. Okay, good. What are the three parts of a nervous tissue? The cell body or the neurosoma? Okay. What's the function of your dendrites? Receives incoming signals, right? What's the function of your axon? Outgoing what? Signals. Okay. So whether I talk about it or not, it is still your responsibility to read it. You know? Because there will be a lot of things I will not talk about in this textbook because it's so much material, but you're still responsible for it. You got it? So apparently we stopped here, right? Did I cover all of the, what are the three types of cartilage? Hyaline, elastic, and what? The fiber what? Cartilage. Okay. I was looking for my study guide because as I was making the quiz out, I was looking at the questions on the study guides for the quiz. So you guys are going to start having a quiz from your study guides to really get you guys to doing them soon, really early, rather than waiting until the week of your exam or the day before. You got it? Maybe in here. So I talked about the cartilage, right? Yeah, study hints. Because that's number 16. Know which muscle cells are striated, voluntary, and what? Involuntary. Okay? So if it's on your study guide, I mean, you got to read it anyway. You know what I mean? So did I talk about bone? I started? Okay. This is bone. We're going to go into a little bit more details about the bone cells when we get to, let's see if I can, okay. There's an entire chapter on bone. This is a picture as to what, if you do a cross-section of your bone, if you cut it, that's what the inside of your bone actually looks like. You have a central canal in which the nerves and the blood vessels actually travel through. You also have, okay, Microsoft PowerPoint has stopped working. And what if I use a solution for that? Yeah, I'm going to have to keep it like this because there's something going on with my laptop. Okay. Like I said, if you look at that black hollow opening at the very top, that's called your central canal. Nerves and blood vessels actually travel through there to supply nutrients to your osteocytes. Osteocytes are bone-forming cells that we're going to talk about there's a chapter, I think, after the skin on bone. We're going to talk about your osteocytes and the role they play in the development of your bone. So your osteocytes were actually housed into these little black areas that you see, which are called your lacunae. Okay? The entire structure, or that onion-like layer that you see, of course, is called the osteon. You see several up there. This entire one right here, it looks like a little ring. Okay, those are called, this one is a little box. That's called an osteon. Of course, it's the canaliculi, these little string-like projections that you see poking out, of course, are associated with bone as well. So compact bone is pretty complex. Blood vessels. It's vascular, it's not avascular. I think there's a question on your study guide that actually says, number 8, know which tissues are vascular, which means they have blood vessels, and which are avascular, they do not have blood vessels. Of course, this one right here is vascular, which means bone, the healing process of a bone is pretty quick because it has those blood vessels available. Cartilage, ligaments, tendons, of course, those connective tissues, they're actually avascular, which is why it takes the healing process a little bit longer, because there's not, if there are any blood vessels, there are very few of them there. Periosteum, so I mentioned osteocytes, I mentioned the osteon, the canaliculi. The periosteum, of course, there are 2 layers that we're going to talk about in another chapter, which is actually, peri means what? Around. Osteo means bone. So there's a layer around the bone, a tough, fibrous, connective tissue, what? Covering. Is it dense regular or dense irregular? You can look in your textbook and tell me. It's dense irregular, exactly. That one, of course, the periosteum, the perichondrium. Perichondrium means what? Around cartilage. That's the tough, fibrous, connective tissue they're actually talking about. You got it? Okay. Blood. Blood, of course, is a connective tissue. Name some more connective tissues. Raise your hand if you can name, besides Blessing, besides Tremaine, besides those students that are already participating. Okay, I'm going to start right here. Name a connective tissue for me. Excuse me, I can't hear you. Okay. Willie, name a connective tissue. Cartilage. Name a connective tissue. Excuse me? You can't what? You don't know? Okay. Next person, name a connective tissue. Bone. There's one right up here. Next, Scott. I'm coming. Good. Next, connective tissue. Somebody said bone. Next person, connective tissue. Without looking in your notes. All the way in the back in the lime green. Name a connective tissue. That's the most abundant group. Coming forward, April. Is it April? Name a connective tissue. Very good. Tremaine. Reticular. Fibro. That's not a tissue. Not a tissue. Blood. That's not a connective tissue. Next. Somebody said that one. What specific? You got to know the tissue for the tendon. Mary. Somebody said bone. Turn those cell phones off. Mary. Okay. Next person on the row. Leslie, name a connective tissue. Okay, be a little bit more specific. Did somebody say that one? But yeah, that is a tissue, right? Okay. Jasmine? I think so. You gotta be specific. That's not a tissue. That's a structure of a tissue. That's where you would find, that's one of the representative locations for a tissue. Yeah. No. That's regular. Thank you. Next. Yeah. She just said that. Can't piggyback off her. That's irregular. Very good. Is that all? Normally on your first lab exam, you see those pictures? I thought I pointed them out to you. Starting on page 157, those are tissues. You see loose connective tissue at the top. Below the loose connective tissue, you have categories of loose connective tissue. All right? You have the areolar, you've got the reticular. This stuff is on your test now. Page 158, dense regular, dense irregular, adipose. These are all connective tissues. Page 160, so you may want to write that down. Hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, fibrocartilage, bone, those are all connective tissues. Page 162, blood is a connective tissue. And then that's where it stops, and then it goes into the nervous tissue, which is totally separate from what? The connective tissue. Now, let me ask you this. Mandisa, what are the 4 classes of tissues? The epithelial, right? There are 4 classes. So we've gone over all of the what? The epithelial tissues. We're still looking at your connective tissues, and then we're going to go into that a third class, which is your nervous, and the fourth, which will be your what? Your muscle. So you cannot just say loose connective, because I will mark it wrong, okay? You got to know those pictures. Typically, I put those pictures on an exam, or I will take a slide and put it under the microscope, and you will have to identify that particular tissue. That's how they do it at UAB and Jeff State. Blood. Okay. Blood is a connective tissue. The ground substance, the matrix of blood, of course, is a fluid or a liquid. I remember telling you guys that the ground substance, of course, can be a fluid. It could be a liquid. It could be a solid. It could be a semi-solid. It could be a gel. All right. The matrix of bone, of course, is calcium, okay, which makes the bone hard. So right here, you have your blood tissue right here that's responsible for transporting what? The red blood cells transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste, things of that sort. It's found in your heart. You find it in your blood vessels, this particular type of connective tissue. You have formed elements, erythrocytes, that first word that you see, guys, those are your red blood cells. That's another name for your RBCs. All of those little disc-shaped, round, circular, red structures that you see, those are your erythrocytes. Scattered throughout, you have your leukocytes. You have your basophils, your eosinophils, your neutrophils, your monocytes, and things of that sort. All of those are your white blood cells, which are part of our immune system, and they guard us against any antigens or anything foreign that gets into the body. If you've noticed, if you look at your neutrophils, your lymphocytes, and your monocytes, of course, those have a nucleus. That dark stained violet color that you see is a nucleus that's inside of your what? Your white blood cells. Red blood cells do not have a nucleus. Red blood cells don't have organelles, which means they have to what? Every 90 to 120 days they have to be replaced because they don't have a nucleus or they don't have organelles. Platelets. Platelets is another fragment of your blood tissue responsible for the clotting of your blood, and it also has growth factors to assist with tissue repair as well. Y'all got that? I finished this chapter yesterday, and we're getting ready to move on into chapter 6. So if you guys haven't done your study guide for chapter 5, you're in a pickle right about now. Because as I was telling them, I like to kind of get my lecture exams kind of out of the way before I hit those lab exams. Because this stuff is going to start coming at you pretty quick. And you guys got to be ready for it. You know, got to be ready for it. Simple as that. Nervous and muscular tissue, these are your excitable tissues. Did I draw a picture of a muscle on the board? So I've talked about this, didn't I? Why am I talking about it again? There are two tissues that are excitable, the nervous tissue and, of course, your muscle tissue. There has to be some type of outside force or stimulus to excite these particular type of tissues. If you look membrane potential, when you guys take, I'm going to try and get to chapter 12 in here. I'm about to speed it up. That's why it says there won't be some things I will not talk about. Okay? That membrane potential is called a resting membrane potential. Okay? When we get to the end of the chapter, resting membrane potential. Okay? Okay? That's when your neurons or the nerve cell is just resting, waiting for something to happen. That's when your muscle is just waiting and resting, waiting for something to happen. So there's going to be a charge difference. Because I'm not going to draw this on the board. What did I have over here? What was on the outside? Sodium, and what was on the inside? Potassium. So the sodium, what? Goes into the cell, which has a positive charge, because the outside is more positive. The inside, of course, is more electronegative because you have potassium and other anions. Anions have a negative charge. Anions have a negative charge. Okay, so you have anions plus potassium. They're intracellular. When you guys get to, you got to learn the language of this anatomy course. Intracellular means it's inside of the cell. You also have cations, which have a positive charge, along with sodium, which has a positive charge, is in the extracellular portion of the cell, which is outside. Jumping the gun a little bit, I'm kind of getting off into anatomy 202. So, although this one has a positive charge, it's going to be kind of covered over by all of those other anions that are inside of the cell. So when there's a change in charge difference across the membrane of a muscle cell, that's when the muscle becomes excited. Okay? Respond quickly to outside stimulus by means of changes in the membrane potential. So if you're doing a bicep curl and you lift a really, really heavy weight, the moment you start trying to lift, there's going to be a change in that potential across that membrane because that muscle is going to be stimulated. The nerves, they actually send signals to each other. Muscles are a little bit different. I thought. Okay, this is a motor neuron. You have sensory neurons and you have motor neurons. This one right here is a motor neuron. It's connected to a muscle. So when we get at the end of the semester, actually there's some animations out there. You guys are going to have to explain in detail how your muscles contract. This neuron, of course, you have your little dendrites here, which receive incoming signals. This round part right here, which is your neurosoma or your cell body, which has all of your organelles, the nucleus inside of it, okay? Then the information goes through here. This part right here, this blue part, is called an axon, okay? The axon has little synaptic terminals at the end that connects to this red structure right here, which is your muscle. So that's going to excite the muscle. When I give you your quiz, the moment you pick up your pencil, that signal from the motor neuron is going to travel to the muscles in your hand to allow for movement to occur. You got it? Okay, so that's like a motor neuron. Now, in the brain and your spinal cord, you also have this. You look over here. In 202, when you talk about the nervous system, you're going to talk about pre- and post-synaptic neurons. Because if you look here at the dendrites, you can see how they're connected to what? Other neurons. That's how they are in your brain. And as I was telling the students the other day, we're all born with a certain number of neurons. By the time you turn 20, you start losing them. Okay? They die. They start dying. That's when people they lose their memory, dementia, other disorders. But however, they can connect with brain cells. You know how they can connect with brain cells? When you're thinking in Anatomy 201, and when you're learning in Anatomy 201, and when you're reading into Anatomy 201. Those that are still living, they will modify themselves, take a different pathway. It's called a neural circuit, and they will actually connect with other living or live neurons. Now, if you don't read your anatomy, your cells are going to continue to die. So by the time you're my age, almost 50, okay, you probably won't remember anything. Because these neurons don't divide. You guys remember mitosis? Biology 103? Ain't no cell division going on here with those neurons. It's like, hey, you're born with the set amount. They're still doing research on this stuff, you know, to try and understand it. But Parkinson's disease, MS, spinal cord, the neurons have died. That's what happens. That's why all of these diseases manifest. Those are central nervous system diseases, neurological what? Disorders, okay? So I've kind of gotten off subject a little bit, sorry. So yeah, they have to connect with other neurons in order to remain active, okay? And once it's called, like I said, it's really called memory trace, where you can get some new ones that will synapse with other neurons, and you have those that are actually what? Modified. You got it? Okay. So you can create more of these by reading Anatomy 201, or you can delete them as you age. Case in point, well, there's a really good example. Tying your shoes, riding a bicycle, okay? You do it over and over and over again. At first it's daunting, it's hard, it's difficult. You say, I can't get it, just like with anatomy. But if you do it over and over and over again, you don't even have to think about it. Like when you read your anatomy over and over and over again, you can hear my voice when you go to sleep at night. And you can also recite what you've actually studied when you get in bed. That's called memory tracing, all right? That's how you study. For those people that say, oh, I studied. If you can't go to bed and have a dream about it, you hadn't studied, all right? So nerves changes result in rapid transmission. Muscles changes result in contraction. You're going to get what? A shortening of what? The muscle. You got it? So here's your little friend right here, that nervous tissue. They're showing you the spinal cord, where you're going to find it. Specialized for communication by electrical and chemical signals. Those chemical signals can be neurotransmitters that you guys are going to talk about in Anatomy 201. Lots of neurotransmitters, adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, things of that sort. Or if you have a substance P, which is a neurotransmitter for pain, okay? So you have lots of different neurotransmitters, which are actually what chemical signals. Consist of neurons. It's also called a nerve cell. They send information to what? Other neurons or what? Cells. Those little bitty structures or cells that you see, those are called your glia cells. They really don't transmit impulses just like the neuron do, but they do the housekeeping. They provide the neurons. It's kind of like they protect the neuron, provide it with nutrients. They assist the neurons in many ways. There are actually 6 of them that you guys are going to talk about in Anatomy 201. astrocytes, the microglia, the ependymal, Schwann cells, blah, blah, blah. So this stuff gets pretty deep. But y'all gonna be ready. Some of y'all don't appear to be ready for this stuff. It's pretty deep. But you're gonna sink or swim. Make a decision. Okay? So neuroglia, glia, dendrites. I think dendrites is on your study guide. You need to know what an axon, which sends outgoing signals to what? Other cells. If you look on page 163, that second paragraph, glia cells constitute most of the volume of your nervous tissue. They are usually much smaller than neurons. There are 6 types described in chapter 12, which provide a variety of supportive, protective, and housekeeping functions for the nervous system. Although they communicate with neurons and each other, they do not transmit what? Long-distance signals like the neurons. You got it? So here are the parts right here: cell body, dendrites, and what? The axon. Those little tree-like branches that you see, your dendrites, they receive signals, send it to the neurosoma or the cell body. That long, hollow tube that you see is called your axon, and they send out what? Outgoing signals. One is going to receive it, sends it to the neurosoma or the cell body, which kind of processes it, shoots it out to the axon, okay, which connects to what? Or synapse with other what? Neurons. You got it? Does that make sense? Muscular tissue, the last class of connective tissue, okay? Elongated cells that are specialized to contract in response to stimulation. Primarily job is to exert what? Physical force on other tissues and organs. Okay, muscle tissue. Your muscles exerts physical force on your bones to allow you to what? To move, okay? Creates what? Movement. Breathing, we're going to talk about the muscles, your breathing muscles that are part of the ribs or the thoracic cage, which are responsible for us inhaling and exhaling. Blood circulation, that's your cardiac muscle tissue, important source of body heat. Muscle tissue responsible for producing about 85% of our body heat. Okay, and there are 3 types: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Cardiac, of course, is just restricted to what? The heart, as you can see. Smooth, of course, is in a lot of different systems, like your urinary, your integumentary, the reproductive system. You're going to find the respiratory. You will find the smooth tissue. And, of course, the skeletal is just associated with what? The bones. All right? Now, this is what it looks like. They've taken the calf muscle or the gastrocnemius out of that guy's leg, and they're showing you what those little striations look like. What you see here, these alternating light and dark bands, are called I bands and A bands, which we're going to talk about in detail in another chapter. That's what gives it that stripe-like appearance. This particular muscle, if you look at the nucleus, is what? Nucleated. Most attached to bone. There are a few exceptions. Your tongue, your esophagus, your facial muscles. Facial muscles, we're going to talk about the dermis, which is the second layer of what? The skin, the connective tissue layer. A lot of those muscles in your face attach to the dermis. And I can tell your nonverbal communication when I look out in the audience by the diverse facial expressions that are made. Those muscles can get cramped up, so don't make those funny faces at me. All right. Sphincter muscle we're going to talk about, which is a little ring-like structure around what? Now, the sphincter muscle it's associated with both the skeletal and the smooth muscle. It's a little ring that's around your urethra. You find it around your anus as well, that opens and closes what? Body passages. Okay. Know what voluntary means, which means you have conscious control over it. Okay. You can make a decision when I hand out your quiz. I tell you to get in quiz format. Take out a sheet of paper, number it from 1 to 10. answer these questions that I have for you. You can make a conscious decision to take the quiz, write your answers down. Now, if you got dead neurons, like I said, you want to produce some new ones, right? You'll do that study guide so you can pass this quiz. So that's the gist of that. Yeah, so you can make a conscious effort to pick up that pencil and start writing. You got it? That's muscular tissue. Okay, let's keep it moving so I can finish up. Smooth muscle. As you can see, it's what? Smooth. It has no stripes or those striations that you see with your cardiac and your skeletal. Also with the cardiac muscle, I'm just going to bring out, if you turn to page 165, okay. Where's the representative location? The heart. That's where the cardiac muscle, right, is. Pumping of blood under what? Involuntary control. We have no conscious control over the heart pumping. We have no conscious control over the heart contracting. We can't turn it on or what? Off. There is no switch for that, okay? So you have those intercalated discs, okay? Those intercalated discs, what they do is each myocyte or cardiocyte or muscle, cardiac muscle cell, that's how signals go from one cell to the next in your heart, because the heart is made up of what? It's a tissue made up of what? A large group of what? Cells. Cells become what? Tissues. Okay? Visceral, it's a visceral muscle. We've talked about a visceral organ in here, right? What visceral organs are found in your thoracic cavity? Listen. Heart and your lungs, right? Those were what? Visceral organs. Visceral organs in your abdominal what? Pelvic what? Cavities. So it forms layers of digestive. You can see it lining your small intestines, which is actually connected to your stomach, which is that J-shaped pouch. And what it actually does in our digestive system, guys, it actually allows our food to move. So you have in 202, you know, talk about peristalsis contraction, which is associated with the digestive system. Okay, it's contraction that allows the food to what? To actually move. All right. You have two layers. You have an adjacent and a longitudinal. I don't know if they mention it in your textbook, but one is going to move the food and the other one is going to actually contract or become shorter. If you look at the functions, okay, swallowing is a type of what? Smooth muscle contraction. Contraction of your stomach and your intestines, I just mentioned that. It moves what? Food. Expulsion of feces and urine, type of smooth muscle contraction. That little sphincter around your rectum and your anus and your urethra it's going to contract to allow your urine and your feces to what? Fall. You have no voluntary control over it. You can hold it for an opportune time, but you can't hold it forever, right? Okay. Expulsion of feces, labor contractions. We talked about that. The uterus is lined by a smooth muscle. When those labor contractions hit, you can't stop them. You don't have a switch, okay? You have no conscious control of what? Stopping them. Control of blood pressure keeps the blood pressure at a certain range, high or what? Low, okay? That's smooth muscles are involved in that. The flow of air, okay? It controls the incoming of what? Oxygen, the outgoing of what? CO2, so the airflow, of course, is a type of smooth muscle contraction that's part of your respiratory system. Pupillary diameter, dilation and constriction of what? The pupils, erection of the hairs that was on that lab that you guys did last week. You have no conscious control over those hairs standing up erect in an upright position that has no function in us. They just appear out of nowhere, and some of you they're probably standing up now because it's a little cold in here. And you have what? The goosebumps. Can't control that. It'd be nice if you could, wouldn't it? Moving on. Cell junctions. Moving on. Tight junctions. Desmosomes. I'm going to mention desmosomes. These are, okay, junctions, cell junctions. Page 166, 167, you can read about it. I'm going to mention desmosomes for you because it is mentioned when we talk about your integumentary system. Desmosomes are really like junctions that hold the skin together, okay? That's why when you have a sunburn and you start shedding that skin, it kind of comes out in like little sheets, like you can peel it off, because the desmosomes are actually holding those keratinocytes together. Like a clothing snap. Serves to keep the cells from what? Pulling apart. Serves to keep your skin cells from what? Pulling up what? Apart. Okay? Gap junction, that one is found in the heart. Okay. 2 types of glands, exocrine and what? Endocrine. I think that's on your study guide. Yep, number 15. Know how endocrine and exocrine glands what? Differ. Okay. So we're about to talk about those. A gland, cell or organ that secretes substances for use elsewhere in the body or release them for elimination from the body. Okay, anything that's going to be used inside of the body, such as your pancreatic juices, your digestive enzymes, saliva, which is secreted into your mouth, the cavity of your mouth. Of course, the term used to describe that is called secretion. Excretion, like your urine, for example, anything that you have to remove from the body or some type of waste, we use the term what? Excretion. Okay? That's that. So here are your 2 glands right here. The one thing you need to remember, guys, remember key words. Like on this quiz, this quiz is really easy if you've did your study hints for chapter 5. I gave it yesterday, and only a few students had done their study guides because, okay, Connect is cool, it's good, but I really don't think it's going to play a pivotal role in you getting the grade that you want to get out of this course. Because if you don't concentrate on this right here and you depend solely on Connect, you're going to probably fail every exam in here. And I'm just being honest. You know, I'm a realist. I keep it real. Okay? If you don't pay attention to this stuff right here, forget about it. Okay? So exocrine glands, guys, they do have a duct. It's a tube. If you look in your textbook, now the endocrine, they don't have a duct. If you look at your textbook on page 169, those little gold structures that you see looks like a little tube. Okay, those are called ducts. Okay, so certain fluids, anything that has to be secreted, okay, has to travel through a what? A duct. They could be simple or they could be compound. And if you look at them, they're all different. The one from the sweat gland does not look like the mammary gland, or does it look like what? The pancreas. Okay? But that fluid, whatever, that milk from your mammary gland has to travel through the gold duct before it actually reaches what? The surface. When you sweat, okay, it has to travel through the duct before it actually reaches what? The surface. The pancreas, which is an organ that's part of the digestive in your endocrine system because it has 2 functions, okay? The pancreatic juices has to travel through what? A duct, okay? Endocrine glands, on the other hand, if you look on page 168, there's no duct involved, but you do see what? Blood vessels or blood capillaries. So anything, hormones, things of that sort, they're going to be secreted directly into your bloodstream or into any type of interstitial fluid. Thyroid, adrenal, and pituitary glands are examples of those. Like I stated, some have both endocrine and exocrine functions, like your pancreas. Your pancreas, of course, is an exocrine gland because it secretes what? Pancreatic juices. It's also what? An endocrine gland because it releases what? Hormones directly into your bloodstream. Your gonads, which are your ovaries and your testes, of course, They have what? Endocrine and exocrine function. Endocrine function, they release what? Hormones directly into the bloodstream, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, okay? And they also release what? The eggs and the sperm have to travel through a duct to get to their where they need to go, okay? Unicellular can be endocrine or what? Exocrine. Okay, I need to skip over some stuff. I'm not going to talk about that. It's not on your test. Okay, I mentioned this right here. The types of secretion, I think the types are on your study guide. I know which one, types or modes, I'm not sure. Number 13? Yeah. Okay, read modes of secretion. So here are your three types of secretions right here. You can have you have serous glands, you have mucus glands, and you have what? The mixed glands. And you have your cytogenic glands. They're different types. So serous glands, of course, the secretion, of course, is very thin. It's watery, like your sweat, the milk, your tears, and what? The enzymes in your stomach. Mucus, on the other hand, they're secreted by the goblet cells. Mucus, remember that, you know what a goblet cell is. There were two tissues, epithelial tissues in your chapter that mentioned goblet cells. Goblet cells are responsible for secreting what? Mucus, okay? Mucus is a little bit thicker than serous fluid. It's really, really sticky. It's a little bit thick. And the reason being is it traps pathogens, particles, debris, nicotine or cigarette smoke, just to name a few, okay, in order to keep it from actually damaging other what? Organs or structures nearby. You also have a mixed gland. Like I said, they produce both cell types. Your salivary gland, you have several types. Those are considered mixed glands. Your saliva can actually be really, really thin. Your saliva can actually be a little bit thick or frothy. Yeah. There's no picture of what? Oh, it's you have pseudostratified columnar.
Yeah.
What did I put on the study guide?
So they have to.
Are you saying there's a typo on here or something?
No, I'm not
Oh.
saying because you know a simple columnar has the goblet cell. Can you assume that a stratified columnar has the
It's on page 150. Yeah. Those yellow structures that you see, those are called goblet cells.
There's no picture of a stratified columnar. But seeing as it's in a simple columnar, we should assume the goblet cell also be a stratified columnar.
Well, they just don't have one here. I meant pseudo-stratified columnar. But there is a stratified columnar. They don't have a picture of it in here, so. I don't even think they have a reading of it in here. Some textbooks have have stratified columnar. Some, apparently your book doesn't have it, so. I think I put pseudo-stratified on your study guide. Yeah, which is the one you need to concentrate on. I'm not going to put anything on your test that's not in this book. Modes of secretion. Like I said, the mucus glands, they're pretty much found in a lot of the systems. Your digestive system, of course, secretes what? Mucus. The vagina has what? Mucus. Your eyes, there's mucus in your eyes. Okay? But anyway, here are the modes of secretion: American glands, apocrine glands, and of course you need to know the modes of secretion for your holocrine or your sebaceous gland as well. The American glands, if you look at this picture right here, you guys probably remember from Biology 103 the term exocytosis. That those little vesicles that you see, okay, that's where the secretion, what has to come out, is actually housed, like your tears, the pancreatic juices, your gastric fluids, and things of that sort. So once exocytosis occurs, those little vesicles are going to burst, and you can see that the product is going to actually travel, okay, through that little tube or the duct before it actually reaches what? The surface, okay? Apocrine glands, on the other hand, is a type of American gland as well. It has the same mode of secretion as your American glands. When you sweat, exocytosis occurs in your armpits, which is your axillary sweat glands, in order for it to reach what? The surface of your skin. The milk is the same way. Pregnant, lactating women, the milk has to come out of those little vesicles, travel before it actually reaches what? The surface. It was once thought to believe that the entire cytoplasm, or the apical portion of the apocrine gland, of course, was actually broken apart from the particular type of gland, but they found out later that that was not true, so I think they deducted that from the textbook, you know. Removed it from the textbook. What time do you guys have? 10:57. Okay. Modes of secretion. That's on page 169. And this one right here, those of you that have oily skin, this one is called the holocrine gland. They're going to change it up on you. They're going to switch the name up on you. It's also called a sebaceous gland. When we get to the chapter on the skin, sebaceous gland, okay, this secretes sebum. Sebum is just oil, okay? And if you look at it, it kind of looks like a little flask to me, has a flask-like structure. Now, if you look at the base, or at the very bottom, the deep portion of that particular picture, you can see cell division occurs, because these cells, they do what? Divide. They go through what? Mitosis. However, when they reach the surface, cell division, of course, stops. That entire cell is going to burst open, releasing all of that oil, the lipids, all of that has to come out, and it's going to travel to your scalp. You have what? Oily hair. It travels to the skin, your face. You have what? Oily what? Skin in your face. Okay? So the entire cell is going to disintegrate, which means it's going to what? Burst, and a lot of oil comes out. It's a good thing because it lubricates your skin. Oil lubricates what? The hair. We're going to talk about in another chapter. Secretion of a mixture of cell fragments and synthesized substance, oil glands of your scalp. The glands of what? The eyelids. Eyelids get oily too, right? Okay. Another thing I thought I was going to say, I can't remember. I guess I forgot about. Do they have holocrine gland in your book? Yeah, they do. Do they have a write-up about it? Do they say anything about it? I see the picture on page 170. But I don't know if they're saying anything about it. Or do they? Have y'all read the chapter? Maybe y'all can tell me that. Oh, they mention them on page 169. Only a few glands use this mode of secretion as the blah, blah, blah. Tends to be thicker than what? American. Okay. Get in testing format. You got a sheet of paper. Now, you know, yesterday was the last day to pay. If your name was not on that official roll I brought in here on, I think, Thursday, you're not supposed to be in here, okay? Because if you stay in here to the end, well, you ain't gonna stay in here to the end, because I will call security. Okay, please escort them out. So yeah, take a piece of paper out and a pencil. Write with a pencil, please. Get in quiz format. You can't be sitting next to anyone. Put everything under your desk. All right? Everything. The only thing that I want on your desk is your quiz, sheet of paper, and a pencil. All right? So you next will know what quiz is coming up after this one, chapter 6, right? So y'all need to get those study guides done quickly, because the quizzes are coming from this here. Okay? This right here. Okay, there's some people that are out of sync, looks like. I think it's his desk. Blessing, you can't sit next to Scott. Okay? Yeah. I think that entire row needs to probably move. Tremaine. Oh, you're fine. Yeah. As long as you're not sitting directly next to someone. Put those Louis Vuitton bags, the Michael Kors, the coaches, and all of that onto your desk. Do not write on this. I repeat, do not write on this. Now you know if you do this, you can scratch. I had them to write it over yesterday. You know if you do this, you have to write it over. All right?